February 2016. A group from Huffs traveled a third of the way around the world to dive the fabled waters of Yap and Palau. Yap and Palau sit atop a ridge created by plate tectonics. The Pacific Plate is diving beneath the Philippine Plate. This creates two of the deepest trenches on the planet. Manta Ray Bay Resort and their dive center are known around the world. It's a solid, well-run operation. The dive center is well laid out and the staff very competent and helpful. The restaurant is an old repurposed Indonesian schooner. We spent many hours inside this unique place. The food was good and the beer cold. Yap is a mecca for manta encounters, and many of our dives took us to the best of the locations. Of our 17 dives, 5 were at manta cleaning stations. We spent 4 dives at Yap Caverns all the way to the south end of the island. The other 8 were scattered around at western or southern locations. Getting to the mantas was fun. We would board at the resort and motor north through Tangerang Canal, which was cut by the Germans in 1901. At low tide, it was difficult or sometimes impossible to traverse the canal. But once we got through, it was possible to motor through the lagoon pretty rapidly. The boat would moor up and the group would jump in, following the ridge to the viewing station. Visibility was generally poor, but that's why the mantas were there. We would be in a semicircle with the show in front, overhead, and sometimes behind us. The other location at Mill Channel was much the same. Jump in, follow the ridge out to the viewing station, line up, and watch the show. It wasn't just mantas. Yap had much more to show us. Just around the corner, Vertigo, perched on the drop-off, provided clear waters, sunshine, and sharks. Lionfish Wall juts out over the Yap Trench as far south as we could dive. The shallows on top of the wall are beautiful and full of nice surprises. At the drop-off, the reef becomes high profile with schools of fish flashing by. It's not all diving in Yap. Time to surface and head back for more adventures. We arrive back home and head out to check on the local culture. Monica and I stop by the First National Bank of Yap to exchange money. We're told they have no small bills. Stone money, or rye, was quarried by the Yapese for hundreds of years. Most of the stones made of crystal and calcite were quarried and shaped on the islands of Palau. Large expeditions were formed that might last several years. Transport back to Yap was often hazardous, and many were lost in the depths. Their value is not so much determined by the size, but rather the heroic stories of difficulty overcome. Yap didn't play a pivotal role during World War II. The Japanese occupied it and built an airfield, but it was mostly bypassed due to the U.S.'s island hopping strategy. They would still bomb the airfield to keep it from being a factor and lost planes in the process, like the remains of this Grumman F-6F Hellcat. These 10 airmen on the Coleman B-24J were never found when they were hit and crashed into the sea. Men who had to grow up and die way too young. Following the war, Yap became a U.S. trusteeship until 1996, when it became part of the Federated States of Micronesia. Back in the present, we visited one of the tribal houses and were treated to a traditional dance performed by a troupe of young men and boys. After a good night's sleep, we head back to see more underwater marvels of Yap. Today's agenda takes us south again, this time to the sloping reef of Buena Vista. The diving is smooth with good wide angle and macro subjects. Toward the end of the dive, I spot these two little sharp-nosed puffers squaring off like they've been tossed into Thunderdome. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Farther south, right around the corner, Yap Caverns awaits. It's another high-profile reef with unusual sights, swim-throughs, magic mushrooms, and a wicked thermocline. This amazing and exotic dive site turns into a favorite. We dive it 4 times. At the bottom and in the cold, Kay finds a pile of algae debris that is robustly inhabited. We've been told all the way back in the labyrinth is where we will find magic mushrooms. Back on top, where it's warmer, we're overwhelmed by beauty and variety. Hovering over the lettuce coral, a cuttlefish speaks to us in colorful code. It's not for us to comprehend. From my earliest days of diving, I viewed Palau as a magical kingdom, where sky, water, and marvels came together above and below the water in wondrous ways. A place where rock islands rise from the lagoon, crystalline stalactites grow in watery caves, and jellyfish soak up sunshine in a salty lake. Palau is an archipelago surrounded by lagoons and drop-offs. In the north are the seldom visited Kai Angel Islands and atolls. To the far south are the war-torn islands of Palau and Angaur. In between, Koror is the center of commerce and where everything begins and ends. Most of the diving is in the southwestern part of the main lagoon. In 1996, Martha and I went with Jim and Pat Brindley for a week on the Sundancer, a Peter Hughes boat. We stayed at the Palau Pacific Resort when arriving and booked 2 extra dives with Sam's Tours before boarding. The Stardancer was a comfortable, well-run boat. Several years later, it was renamed the Stardancer and moved to Papua New Guinea. In 2007, a group from Hups booked the same boat for a stormy trip. Martha was no longer diving because of ear problems, so she snorkeled on almost every dive, even on our night dive, which she said afterward was pretty stupid. She was a real trooper. My Nikon is 5 and I never got along well, but I still managed to get some pictures that I liked. Chandelier Cave was fun. 2 of us went to the back, climbed out, took off our gear, and crawled back farther before returning. On the far west side of the atoll, 3 enormous blue holes cut through the reef. Descending into the darkness is eerie, but I found it strangely calming. In the same area, Blue Corner, Big Drop-Off, and Nemales Wall are signature dives. Hooking onto the wall and watching the schools of fish and sharks is electric. Unfortunately, those pictures were destroyed when the developer tank got dropped on the boat. Only a few were saved. We sailed 1 day south to Angaur, the pork chop of the Pacific. The vast field of cobblestone coral was unique in my experience. The boat stopped at Palau on the way back for 1 dive and a World War II history lesson. Snorkeling in Jellyfish Lake was the final high point of our trip. Then, the Sundancer took us through the rock islands before docking and our trip home. Palauan byhouses were traditionally decorated with carvings depicting local myths and historical events. In the 1930s, a Japanese artist arrived to teach carving to the Palauans. He studied the legends carved on those walls. Storyboards, as they are now called, were carved by prisoners for rehabilitation. We purchased these 2 in that same jailhouse. We catch the early flight from Yap to Palau to do some kayaking in the Rock Islands. Sam's Tours has it all ready for us when we arrive, and after getting changed, we head out. The scenery is special and a great experience. Back for a break, Sandy goes all Henry Wadsworth Longfellow on us. Monica takes exception to the cold water. And Lance could care less. Betel nut is the seed of the Erica palm. It is chewed in Southeast Asia and tropical Pacific for stimulation and heightened awareness. Monica, it seems, will try just about anything once. After the nut is cracked, it is marinated with slaked lime, wrapped in a betel leaf, and chewed. She must have thought it was okay. Well, maybe not. We board the Palau Aggressor and head out for a week of diving. We're back in the water, this time at Big Drop-Off for sea fans, hungry turtles, and fish of all varieties. blue corner is hooking onto the reef and watching the parade of sharks and other fish. We move on to German Channel, blasted through the reef by the Germans in 1905 using explosives made from bird guano found on Angauer. We went to see mantas, and all we got was this sandy ray and remoras. Later on, up the channel, we run through a large school of big eyes. I got stuck on them and the group moved on. So I got lost. I keep looking for them farther up north in the channel while they're busy getting on the boat. 15 minutes later, I arrive at the boat, tired but happy. The variety of fish species, especially butterfly fish, is really amazing. Cameo appearances by sweet lips, angelfish, soldierfish, wrasse of all kinds, triggerfish, and you name it, fill up my memory cards. Stranger things are going on at other dive sites. Here, a fully fed leaf fish perches surrounded by his buffet. This big boy is zeroed in on some hapless morsel of food. He isn't about to be stopped by a pile of junk. Nobody has apparently told him to respect the reef. Something's down there and he's going to get it. Come on, man, you're better than this. I hope it was worth all that effort. In another part of the reef, we find two octopuses with more on their mind than watching us strange swimmers. The approach is slow and steady, and finally accepted. Another generation is guaranteed. it's time to relax. Back at Virgin Blue Hole, we pause to watch a school of snappers pass overhead. Then we descend into the dark. Our final experience before heading home is Jellyfish Lake. It is a small enclosed lake on the rock island of Isle Malik. A short hike over the ridge brings us to the platform where we start our snorkeling run. There are two species of jellyfish, moon and golden jellyfish. Both derive their nutrition from symbiotic algae living in their tissue and from zooplankton in the lake. On several occasions, the population has dropped off precipitously. Causes given range from high water temperatures to sunscreen chemicals. We walk out and start the trek home. Our memories of these magical waters will be with us forever.